Jim Carrey is one of the most prominent comedians that have made their mark in Hollywood. He's a pretty confident man, I might add, because, what would you call a 10-year-old boy who wrote a letter to one of the biggest comedians at the time for a shot at doing comedy, or a guy that wrote a check of $10 million to his future self even when he did not have that much money? There is more about this guy, and we'll bring them to light today. I was surprised by the first one. Hi there, and welcome to Film Rockstar. This video will cover 10 shocking facts about Jim Carrey that probably no one knew about. But before we go on, please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications to stay updated on future uploads. Number 10. He has one daughter who has been on the American Idol. One would think that due to the size of the man's heart, he would be dripping with so many children, but it's not the case. Jim Carrey has just one child, a daughter, Jane Erin Carrey. She is by far the best thing he ever got from his first marriage. She's his pride and was born in California, USA on September 6, 1987. Jane loves dogs. She's a singer-songwriter and has been on the American Idols. Although Jane doesn't seem to be the acting type like her father, she touches the world in her own way through her music. Her band, called the Jane Carrey Band, released an album in 2009, and one of their songs, Sticky Situation, was one of the soundtracks on Dumb and Dumber 2. However, while Jim still sees Jane as a baby, she's not. She currently has a child, Jackson Riley Santana. So by extension, Jim is a grandpa, and their father-daughter relationship is still so strong that the only person Jim follows on Twitter among his 19 million followers is his daughter, Jane Carrey.
She's so wonderful, she's amazing to me.
Number 9. Jim Carrey is Canadian and he has a dual citizenship. While it's very easy to mistake every Hollywood star as originally American, Jim Carrey's not. Jim's mom was of Scottish, French and Irish descent. His dad was of French-Canadian ancestry, so it's safe to say that he is Canadian with a blend of Scottish, French and Irish descent. Jim's full name is James Eugene Carrey, and while his career undoubtedly took off in Hollywood, prompting some to imagine that he had been there all along, he is actually from Newmarket, a suburb in the Greater Toronto area. Interestingly, he has dual citizenship. However, Jim retained his Canadian citizenship to honor his Canadian roots and remind him of who he is. Number 8. Sent resume to Carol Burnett at age 10. As a clever and industrious 10-year-old, Carrey personally penned a letter to Carol Burnett when the Carol Burnett show was at the peak of its popularity. As described in Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, Jim's CV consisted of many humorous impressions he believed were excellent enough to be included on Carol Burnett's variety show. Even though he was not cast, Carrey was overjoyed when Carol gave him a reply. However, she told him to stay in school and focus on his studies in the meantime. After all, he was just a kid then. Number 7. His biggest inspiration was his dad. Jim Carrey developed an early sense of humor and regularly performed for his family, particularly his father Percy. Jim was such a pain to his teachers in grade school that they had to give him 15 uninterrupted minutes at the end of classes so he'd stop having outbursts in class. Does he remind you of anyone? However, his dad quickly realized his potential and encouraged Jim to channel his creative energy in a more professional way. So Jim and his dad wrote a routine for his first appearance at the Yuk Yuks in Toronto at age 15, but things didn't go quite as planned as the owner of the club at the time, Mark Breslin, didn't give Jim a warm welcome. Jim was so unnerved by that experience that he didn't return for 2 years. Instead, he turned to the New York comedy scene, got better quickly, and finally made it to The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson when he became 21. Number 6. He got turned down for Saturday Night Live twice. Everyone quickly remembers Jim, the star of In Living Color, but quite easily forget that he was once at the bottom of the food chain. People forget that he unsuccessfully auditioned for Saturday Night Live in the early 80s on different occasions. He auditioned for the show twice and was turned down both times in the early rounds. Well, it turned out there was a weird process behind the whole audition. There was a kind of performance studio which followed a meeting with the show creator Michael Lorne that required some sort of personality test to ensure they could survive the crazy hours and pressure of live TV. A very long procedure indeed. However, Jim, he went home, became a star, and returned to the show as a host. Biggest comeback of all time. Number 5. He was friends with Tupac Shakur. Believe it or not, Tupac was a light to many through his music, and while many people feared what he represented, Most people saw him as a change and loved him for who he was. He was a beacon of hope for many, and Jim Carrey was one of those who loved him. Yes, was, because less than a year after Tupac got out of prison, he was shot dead in 1996. Nonetheless, during Shakur's imprisonment in 1995, Jim and Tupac became pen buddies, and Jim was frequently sending Tupac humorous letters to cheer him up. Allegedly, Jim reached out to Tupac on several occasions in prison. Those letters were not just funny, but were intended to give Tupac a taste of the outdoor life while he was still locked up. During this isolating time, he became a close confidant, and the pair grew close. Number 4, he published his first children's book. Jim Carrey is best known as a movie actor and a comedian, but he considers his most important duties to be those of a father and a grandpa, Jane and her son Jackson. In 2013, Carrey published How Roland Rolls, a children's book about an ocean wave named Roland, who is concerned about the repercussions of finally reaching the beach and whether this will be the end of his life. He stated that the book is about recognizing the oneness of all life through the metaphor of Roland, who discovers that he is a part of the ocean rather than a distinct wave.
In the middle of the deep blue sea, a wave named Roland came to be.
According to Jim, he wants the book to help children out of fears arising from loss and what would happen to them if they were left alone. I guess you didn't picture Jim as a writer, did you? Number 3, he holds the record for most MTV Movie Awards. If Jim Carrey won each of his nominations, I wouldn't be surprised because he is a multi-talented man. However, that's not the case. He has to leave some for others to take home, right? Jim holds the record for most MTV Movie Award victories with 11 bagged. He's also the only actor in history to have won Golden Globes in both the musical comedy and drama categories. In addition to his 11 trophies, Jim has been nominated for another 12 MTV Movie Awards. His recent win came in 2009 for Best Comedic Performance for Yes Man, and he has won the awards since the station began awarding them in 1992. However, it's a bummer that he hasn't been nominated for the Oscars, but there's no doubt he will surprise us once again when he is. Number 2, endured attacks in comedy clubs. Growing up, Jim was always trying out new ways to present his comedy to his audience. At the time, he was not satisfied with his level, so he tried out experimental comedy, like crawling out of a piano and staying there through another comic's set. But unfortunately, his audience didn't quite welcome this side of his comedy as he expected. Sometimes this disappointment from the audience led to violence. Some nights, he'd have to stand and defend himself for what he was doing. People would yell at him to do his old act while getting violent and angry at him. Other times, it was worse. Jim would have to defend himself with a broken bottle. Yeah, it was that bad. However, Jim saw the whole thing in a different light. He said this made him comfortable with the creative process. Before we reveal our number 1 pick, please subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated on future uploads. Number 1, he almost died once while shooting a movie. It's true that most scenes you see in movies are scripted, but not all go according to plan. In the 1990s, no star could captivate and convert an audience quicker than Jim Carrey. Whether through his ludicrous rubber-face jokes on Aura or his twisted portrayal of the cable guy, you couldn't find a guy more willing to go the extra mile than Jim. However, on one particular shoot, that unwavering commitment nearly got him killed. While filming The Truman Show, at the end of the movie, Truman, Jim's character in the film, almost dies as he tries to escape the fake world he'd been living in. However, it turned out Jim was actually drowning, and his crew just saw it as acting. He had no breath left, and with the last hint of consciousness, he was able to spin to the edge of the wall, all exhausted and gasping for air. He almost died, he said as he shared his experience with Vanity Fair. Which of these facts got to you the most? Tell us in the comments below. Please do remember to subscribe and like this video to stay updated on future uploads. Also check out our top 10 crazy moments that almost got Jack killed video on our channel. So till next time, bye.